Hi, this is Alan Olson, and welcome to American Dreams. My guest today is Bill Gombert. Bill, welcome to today's show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Bill, you're in the financial industry. More specifically, you do comprehensive financial planning. Can you give me some background on how you got started out with your career path there?
Yeah, well, I oddly enjoyed accounting and tax law, so that's right up your wheelhouse. But I enjoyed that in high school and then continued in college, so that was one of my majors, accounting and business and computer science. And during that time frame, what was rather fun is being in a program, I don't even know if they still have it, but it was called the Voluntary Income Tax Assistance Program.
Okay.
So I sat in the library and did some tax returns for people for free, it was fun. I enjoyed helping people. And then ultimately after college, ended up in an insurance company doing some 401k plan, record-keeping things basically, which is a lot of, I like doing that work, but I like talking to people more because when you're in the back, it's less than fun. So then they relocated me a few states away, and I became a sort of a customer service person where I worked with people in the financial services end. And what I came to find out is I enjoy helping people and helping them find the right solution. And when you work at some companies, at least at that time, you weren't allowed to go outside the confines of the organization putting the things together. So that's ultimately how I got here. And it's to me, it's devils are in the details always, and that's where the opportunity lives. So I like it from that aspect. You get to meet a lot of neat people.
Well, in my brief interaction with you, I will say I was totally delighted from the dinner conversation that we had, which led to this follow-up. You're very, very personable, and I want to roll back a little bit on client relationships. In your approach to client services, you emphasize getting to know clients personally. How does this deep understanding of your clients' dreams, help to shape your advisory methods?
Well, yeah, I think that client experience, I know a lot, never all of it, but I know a lot about tax law and things of that nature and planning stuff. But unless I understand what the clients, goals and objectives are fine. That's where everyone starts. But a lot of people have historical thoughts. For instance, when I was probably 10, my grandfather used to fill my head with stuff while we were playing checkers. His comment to me was, you get to own on one car. After that, cash only, and you can own your house. That's it. And here's the reason why. So a lot of those things come into play, and when you're talking with people, and it's not usually, it takes a while to get there, but people's experiences are super interesting. I know people worth tens of millions of dollars, and they're terrified of running out of money, and the reason they are is because, they had a family situation where someone they know well and closely ran out of money. And so when other people look at them and say, you're worth tens of millions of dollars. Well, that doesn't matter. If they still have the fear in their head, how do we get that out so that they have the confidence knowing that they'll be able to make ends meet? And no one else is talking about that because they have a standard of living that's very, in the situation I'm thinking of, they have a standard of living that's very doable on their net worth. But the other stuff still plagues them. So how do we get rid of the stuff that plagues them so that they can live life after they've, obviously accumulated a great deal? So if all I'm there to do is put myself in their situation, understanding what they are, and tell them what I would do if I was in their situation.
You brought up your grandfather, and what strategies, when we're dealing with multi-generational strategies, you find most effective in ensuring financial comfort across multiple generations?
Yeah, in order for them to have confidence in what's going on, I think the biggest issue, the thing that's left out most is communication. I mean, all the trusts and all the grits, grats, gruts, all those technical things that really mean nothing unless you're in the thick of the woods. None of that matters unless you're having a conversation with your family. So, I mean, I've talked to attorneys that have seen it. You know, I had one friend who was a big estate attorney in the area, and he's retired, but he's of counsel. So he comes back from time to time, and we have lunch. And he said it disheartens him because some of the heirs were just pulling as much out of the trust as they possibly could. And really, the people that set it up for him, it's not there so that they can enhance their lifestyle. It's there so that they don't fall on their behind from a financial perspective, because the only thing money does is give you options. If you're sick and you want to go to a certain hospital and it's expensive, you can't go if you don't have the money, so it limits choices. So if you have the money and if, you know, we're blessed enough to have that situation, you can get there and you have other options. So all it really does is buy options. It's not a happiness thing. I mean, I don't need a Ferrari if something happens to one of my family members. Something happens, it's counterproductive.
So building a comprehensive process. Comprehensive process will engage in various strategies to help clients achieve their goals. Could you give some examples of how you integrated multiple strategies in terms of assisting clients implement the comprehensive plan?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways there's ones where we intertwine businesses they have to help reduce some of the income tax liability they have, and ultimately using some other things that are a little more technical, like gifting minority shares of a business to a trust that happens to be inside the trust that it's inside is defective for income tax purposes, which hopefully means nothing to everybody we're talking to except you and me, but it's a way to effectively get money out of your estate so that the kids don't have to sell the business when it comes, because that's one of the biggest issues in keeping money in the family. I mean, taxes are a large part. And when you have a business that, you know, is good size, maybe isn't huge, but if everything's in the business, where typically most business owners' assets are, because they love the business, they feed the business, and then when God calls them home, you could potentially have a 40% tax on a pretty large chunk of the thing, and that's not optimal. So you have to plan for it ahead of time, which is difficult because you're talking about your own demise. But in order to have that conversation, I mean, they need to understand that, hey, this is something that we need to work on. I had one gentleman, he has a rather successful business, you know, depending on the time frame, was worth, I don't know, tens of millions. And when he passed, the lawyer was kind of new on the scene because the old attorney retired. And he said, I'm surprised you're able to get this out of his estate without any estate tax. I said, well, I've been working on that for 12 years. So, you know, it just takes, a lot of that stuff takes time. You can't turn it on a dime. So when you're unfortunately in a hospital bed, if that's where you find yourself, that is not the time to do any kind of serious planning. This stuff takes time, and that's a blessing because hopefully the communication that goes with it to the family, I mean, those things are difficult. This client told me, so I've seen a lot of other competitor businesses where the kids end up in two different offices and they're just plotting against each other how to throw each other out. So he suggested to his heirs that if they felt that way, I need to be quiet and get to sell the place as fast as humanly possible. So it's just fun.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point with, you know, having a long lead time for estate planning rather than a, you know, deathbed plan put in place. What is the right time to start an estate plan? You know, do you have any thoughts on
I personally don't think you can start too soon. I mean, I had some people
Okay.
that I was it depends on your trajectory and how well you feel, but I worked with people that are in their, I think they were in their early 40s at the time, and they had a pretty good run path and feel for what they were going to do. So we were doing survivor planning because they didn't have enough money for the survivor if they needed to do something, but we were also setting the insurance policies, because that's the only thing that creates instant money, putting the insurance policies in trusts that would be that were the insurance was more enduring in nature. That's what they call a permanent policy. But their thought was it wasn't going to be a temporary need. It's going to be a long-term need. So we use the insurance in the beginning to cover the shortfall if, God forbid, something happened to one of them and they wanted to stay home. The survivor wanted to stay home and take care of the kids. Fine. But then longer term, because we hope they're going to live a long time, then we'll use it for estate planning purposes, and those proceeds will be outside their estate.
So how do you handle? Yeah, no. How do you handle situations with conflicting advice in different domains, like legal, financial, might conflict? How do you resolve those types of conflicts with your clients?
I think we just get everybody in the room and have a conversation, because somebody's missing something. Oftentimes you'll say something and you think you're getting it across. So if I tell you I think you should go this way, and here's another couple of options, you say, well, I think you should go this way. That's okay, but now I'm second guessing whether I made what I told you why I think you should go this way. I don't care that you want to go this way. That's fine. But we need to discuss this a little bit longer so I can make sure you understand what I'm trying to say, because I might have said it wrong. It might have hit you at the wrong time, something. But if we have a number of other people in the room, everybody has their own opinion, and we can talk them out. And it's a very complicated area.
So, I have to say, Bill, that your demeanor, you're very gifted in resolving conflicts and varying, points of view. And I appreciate the way that you lay out. Hey, just get everyone together and let's listen and hear things out. I want to roll back. You mentioned insurance and financial planning. How does insurance planning fit into your overall strategy for a client's financial health? And could you give some examples of you successfully integrated insurance into a comprehensive plan?
You're talking about life insurance in particular?
Yes.
Or are you talking about other types as well?
Well, it could be. It could be life insurance. It could be long-term health care.
Okay.
When is it right to have insurance come into the picture? There's varying degrees of points of view on this, understanding there. But let's focus on your approach.
Okay. On the life insurance side, you only need life insurance twice in your life. Once when there's not enough money to accomplish the objectives that you want to have for your family if God calls you home. So it makes, millions out of thin air. So that's fine. And then the only other time you need is when it's the best economic alternative to help fund some of the tax ramifications you have going forward. So for instance, if you if we're trying to do some estate planning and gifting is in order, so you set up some different trusts, and some people set up trusts that are, the one spouse sets up a trust for the other spouse and the other spouse sets up another trust for another. There's reciprocal trust doctrines and other things we can get into, but that's beyond this scope. But essentially what happens is you have money that while you're both alive, one spouse is the beneficiary of this one, and one spouse is the beneficiary of this one. When one of them, if this one dies, that money goes away and goes to the kids. So then that leaves the other spouse here. If this spouse is worried, or we determine that they still need this money, what happens if this person dies and they go away? Well, if we put life insurance potentially as an option in here, then if this is a couple $1 million and it goes away to the kids, and the life insurance policy over here, matures, so to speak, and throws another couple $1 million in here, the survivor spouse still has the same amount of money at their disposal, probably in a better spot from an estate tax perspective. and it depends on an income tax perspective. But those are just some of the things, and especially if you're using some, more advanced planning stuff like generation skipping elections, depending what state you use, and all those other things. But life insurance is a 4-letter word to most people, and no one likes to have it. But the fact of the matter is, the way things are laid out, a number of times it's the best economic alternative, because there's no tax on the buildup going in, and there's no tax on the proceeds at the end. To the extent that changes, it's not going to be a good economic alternative. But for the time being, that's where we are. I don't use it every time or a lot of time, but it depends how much people want to maximize what they're doing. And unfortunately, a lot of people lead with life insurance because it's easy. I don't have to worry about gifting strategies. I just throw this in a trust over here and I fund it and it explodes, but it's outside my estate, so I buy assets out of my estate to pay the tax. Well, that's awesome, but don't you think we should reduce the tax before we get all excited about buying something huge and doing something over here to stop this because you don't feel like doing it? I don't know. So it's not often. Life insurance is not a Swiss Army knife. No, nothing is. There's not a one-size-fits-all.
Let's roll into tax strategy alignment.
Yeah.
So taxes can significantly impact investment outcomes. What are some examples of ways you might or you may align tax strategies with investment planning to maximize the client's financial benefits?
Well, you work through some Roth conversions, or what they call backdoor Roth strategies, which is not huge, but now you can make Roth contributions inside 401k plans, and it doesn't matter how much you make, and you don't have to worry about some of those things. So those are helpful, but they're oftentimes, as a percentage play, kind of minimal. So then depending on net worth, you look at investment portfolios, and a lot of them do throw cash, but if you use or throw taxable income when you don't need it. So you can use some varying things like exchange traded funds, which tend to be more tax efficient. And then it depends, not only is asset allocation important, asset location is equally important. So for instance, if you had, and I'm probably going too deep here, but if you have an intentionally defective trust so that it's an irrevocable trust, so the assets are outside your estate, you probably cut this out later, it's outside your estate, and the grantor is paying tax on whatever happens inside that trust. So it just grows unencumbered by tax. So the stuff that's laying out taxable income, depending on how much money you have left in your estate, it may be better. And that the other thing is, with people converting to Roths, I had a gentleman a number of years ago when this was allowed, he had $1 million or a little bit more in his 401k plan. He said, "What do you think I should do with this?" I said, "I think you should convert it." He said, "Convert it to a Roth." He said, "Do you have any idea how much that's going to cost?" I said, "A lot less than the estate tax," because he was right at that spot where he was going into another 40% tax. And I said, this is going to cut down the amount that's subject to that, so it's a win. Now you have to consider that a little differently, because both Roth money and pre-tax money are subject to a 10-year distribution if it's not a spouse. So is that what you want? That's a whole nother discussion.
Bill, I'll say that you're very, very knowledgeable, and these insights are enough to give an understanding of the need to have a very good financial planner such as yourself to walk through all the estate and the tax nuances. Future trends. Looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in comprehensive planning, and how might these changes impact the industry?
I think a lot of people, well, the stuff that's happening now, a lot of people are nervous about running out of money from a longevity perspective, because the thing that comes out is the 4% rule, so that if you take out 4% of your investment portfolio, it should last for 30 years. That's what they all talked about. Well, if you retire 60, you live to 110, 30 years left me a while back. So how do we, I'd love to live longer. So how do we have some sort of guaranteed income flow, because pensions are kind of a dinosaur. No business really wants to have them, because if the portfolio doesn't do well, they have to make more contributions. So poof, defined contribution plans like 401ks are really the nature of the beast, because we know what our liability is from a contribution perspective, and it won't be anymore. So it's easier for the company to deal with. So I think that's what makes those popular. So I think guaranteed income planning at some point it's gonna rear its head, and it's a feel good, but you really have to crunch the numbers to see how good it feels. Because I've seen one, this was years ago though, so I can't comment on anything that's out there currently. But someone was offering, here, we'll put this in the plan and you'll get a guaranteed income from it. Well, the rate of return was like 1% when you actually dug in, and no one wants that. You're losing purchasing power on an ongoing basis. So it's much like when, pension plans today, they say, well, we want to get rid of the liability, so let's buy some people out. And you look at the numbers and so, oh, well, if someone needs a lot of money in a hurry, this is probably the way, but long-term, it's probably not in your best interest. But those are just calculations. There's nothing more to it. So I think that's going to happen. And with the debt level where it is from a country perspective, it's hard to not believe tax rates are not going to go up. And when you're looking at, I can't remember the statistics, but the top 50% of taxpayers pay about 97% of the tax. So unfortunately, both halves vote. So no one wants to pay more. Everybody I talk to, whether they pay tax or they don't want to pay anymore. I was talking to a gentleman once, and I think he was it was a totally different tax bracket than I was used to, but he was just as adverse as paying tax at his level, and he was in one of the lower rungs, as somebody who's in the top. And people are only adverse. I don't think patriots are as adverse when if they felt the money was being spent used wisely. And I'm not sure we believe that.
How does the person reach out to you for more information, or to engage your services, or to learn more if they're a good fit for you? Is there a phone number or email? Or
they can call the office. The number's 309-788-1970. And we're in the middle of redoing our website, so I'd be remiss if I pointed you to the one that needs to be replaced.
Okay. Bill, it's been a pleasure having you here on today's show.
I appreciate you taking the time.